All right, welcome into the second installment of our DNVR Draft Day live preview series. And boys, we got the most exciting one today, the old trade-up scenarios. Now, we know 1, 2, and 3 are pretty much spoken for at this point. It would be a huge upset for any of those picks to be traded. Yeah. So really the whole thing starts at 4 with the Atlanta Falcons. And Dre, I want to start here with you. What do you think it would take for the Broncos to go from 9 to 4?
You're hoping it just takes the 9th pick, a future first, and a day 2 pick. At worst, a future, a second rounder, even if it's 41 this year.
And what we know about this is when you're trading up for a quarterback, you have to pay a little extra. Yeah. So to me, it's going to be at least 9 next year's first and a second.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when you're trying to get a quarterback, like a team kind of has you, by the you-know-whats.
Yeah.
So
in a vice grip.
You do hope that, that's what you can get. That's what you can do. And you don't want to overpay for this. But if you think you have your guy, like this is what you have to do. You have to trade up. So let's talk about it, Henry. Who are you trading up for at 4?
I'm not, if I'm being honest. None of these guys. I mean, to me, this is just a bad year, in my opinion, to draft a quarterback. And I know I know everybody's in love.
Spicy.
There's 5 guys up there, but it's the COVID year. You've got Zach Wilson, who's been playing a G5 schedule. You've got Mac Jones, who, I mean, you guys know who Mac Jones is. What is he in the NFL? Should he be like a 5th round pick? That's what people were saying like a few months ago, and they were wrong. But and from there, you got Trey Lance, and it's like, yeah, he ran all over the FCS. I could show you a whole bunch of quarterbacks from my childhood that ran all over the FCS, and they didn't get a shot in the NFL. Lance? They do not. They do not. And to me, like all these guys, there's just too many flaws this year, and it's probably not their fault. But to me, a first, and a second is a lot to give up this year. But
take off the GM hat. If you were trading before, who would you be targeting?
You also mentioned the knocks on 3 quarterbacks, but seem to not have found a knock with a 4th.
And
I believe Justin Fields was not mentioned by you, young
he was not mentioned. And there are knocks. There are certainly knocks. Yeah. But dream scenario, Trevor Lawrence falls, not happening. Number 2, though, I think Justin Fields and Zach Wilson to me right now, it's kind of a toss-up.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you look at Zach Wilson, incredible arm. He seems like a magician sometimes. He can run. He can do all that kind of stuff. He was not all that good until he played a terrible, terrible schedule. That's why Justin Fields, having done what he's done, accomplished what he's accomplished, being the number 1 quarterback in his recruiting class, all the way through. He's just been really good, really solid. There are things that you could clean up in terms of like processing quicker, that type of stuff. But I think that he would be my number 2. And then from there, like I said, Zach Wilson, we're going Mac Jones, and we're going Trey Lance 5.
What's interesting about just like hype around Trey Lance, which I have been a part of, I really like him. Mm-hmm. One thing we can say definitively, but with 100% certainty, is if you took Justin Fields and put him on North Dakota State, you would see at the very least the same type of production, probably better, just as good of a runner if they wanted to use him in that role. And you cannot definitively say that if you took Trey Lance and put him on Ohio State. Now, I personally think if you did that, we would be talking about him as potentially the number 1 overall pick, but you can't say that definitively.
You cannot. You cannot. And what I'll add is like, did they do all the power running stuff with Trey Lance? I mean, Justin Fields' pro day was bigger than Trey Lance. And sure, like Trey Lance has like the frame to fill out, and he's a half-inch taller and all that stuff. But I mean, Justin Fields on that NDSU team, you don't need to say what they would have been.
And what was Justin Fields?
That's an insane way of giving you perspective on the matter, though.
Right?
Because, I mean, Justin Fields at NDSU, come on. They're going to have 10K yards total in one season.
NDSU in their 2021 recruiting class didn't have a commit that had stars. Like not even a 2-star. And that was an abnormal year. This was an abnormal year for them. Typically they have like a 3-star in there and a couple of 2-stars. But like there is the difference between that level of play and FBS is very big.
Yeah, it's interesting to think of it that way. And I think everyone's favorite stat about Trey Lance is right. He went, what was it, 28 touchdowns, 0 interceptions?
Yeah.
Until this season.
Until this, right.
And when he played one game.
What's funny is Justin Fields. Do you remember what his stats were his junior year? Wasn't it 38-2 or something at Ohio State?
Yeah, and only ever quarterback in Big Ten history to throw for over 40 touchdowns and run for over 10.
40-2 or something.
Yeah, and I mean, the Big Ten, last I can remember, has produced some decent NFL quarterbacks, including Tom Brady and Drew Brees. So
They're solid.
to be the only one in the history of that conference to do that,
And to build on top of that, I mean, Justin Fields doesn't have to take a bunch of risks in that offense, but that NDSU team, they've won 6 of the last 7 national championships. You don't need to maximize your opportunities. Like, I think Trey Lance might get knocked a little bit too much. I think he completed like 44% of his passes, or he had 44% of his passes that were at least 20 yards downfield that were on target. And that's because a lot of those you just throw away because it needs to be a perfect opportunity for it to be a risk worth taking, because you can just line up and run for 6 yards, 7 yards every single time if you want.
Right.
He's such a hard evaluation because you watch in the way, I mean, they dominate the running game so much that the play action stuff is all wide open because they're overcommitting. It's a tough study. You are absolutely projecting with him. So Dre, we just kind of praised Justin Fields a lot. Are you making that trade from 9 to 4 for Justin Fields? You personally. Henry said no. Where are you at?
Yeah, I am. Of course, the hope is that he drops to me. I'm greedy. I hope he drops.
You don't have that opportunity, though.
Is it worth the gamble, though? Is it worth the gamble?
100%. 100%.
To the gamble to trade up or the gamble to wait and see?
The gamble to trade up is 100% worth it. Coming into the year, just a special talent. Dropped off just a little bit in a super wacky year. We gotta, if we're gonna give the others a little doubt because of the wacky season, we gotta give him the benefit of the doubt because of the wacky season. And yeah, I think he's worth putting the chips to the middle of the table for.
And to me, you don't have the option of hoping he falls to 9 because Atlanta's on the phone with you and they're saying Carolina's on the phone too.
Which they would reject that offer. They're not doing it in division.
Okay.
We can get into this stuff
Yes, we
because
can.
I do think it falls pretty well for the Broncos.
They're saying Oakland is on the phone.
Yeah.
Well, we could say realistic, New England, Chicago, Washington.
Right.
Yeah.
Whoever. Yeah. They're saying they're coming up to get Fields. We'd prefer, this is a perfect scenario. We'd prefer your pick. You have 9.
Right.
Exactly.
So are you doing it? And you're saying yes. I have been so up and down and roller coaster with all these guys. As we sit here today, I'm high on Justin Fields.
Let's go.
I know that's where I'm at too.
I'm having
That's where I'm at too.
Justin Fields Day.
It's been about 10 days of me just growing on him, and I'm gonna fall back off in time for the draft. I can feel it coming.
Yeah,
I can feel it coming.
I woke up on the Justin Fields side of the bed today.
It's been a long 3 months, just back and forth and back.
Right,
and
and there's so many guys, and it's fun. But I think I make that deal too. This is the time. I'm a big believer in where will you be next year? Who's available next year?
Well,
In the best case scenario, you don't have the 9th pick for a long, long time or anywhere near it.
No.
And if you're George Payton and you believe in what you're building, you're thinking along the same lines, and you're thinking, man, when's another time when there's going to be 5 quarterbacks going in the top 10? This is our opportunity. We like this guy. And again, I take that back. You have to love him. And if you love him, go get him. And the last thing I want to say on this is there's a lot of people saying, well, if they loved him, why wouldn't they go up to 4 right now? And I think there's a pretty simple answer to that, which is we still don't really know about 3. Now, I would assume John Elway can call up his buddy John Lynch and say, look, man, we're considering making a deal with Atlanta. Can you just tell me who you guys are taking so I can know if I need to make this deal or not? Right. But, I mean, I don't...
Do they want that out?
I don't know. Exactly. And maybe John Lynch doesn't trust John Elway to keep his mouth shut.
Yeah.
So the reason you don't trade up to 4 right now is because you just don't know. If you love Justin Fields and you're ready to risk it all for Justin Fields and you trade up to the 4th overall pick and then Justin Fields gets drafted by the 49ers right in front of you or, pick any of the quarterbacks, the guy that you want, well, then you're in big trouble and you made a really bad mistake. So what you're probably telling the Falcons is, hey, we're really interested as soon as we know what happens at 3.
Yep.
And
especially because you're in pole position. Like
Yes.
if someone
Yes.
behind you forces you to have to use some of your leverage early, okay, then you can reevaluate. But right now, you're in pole position as George Payton and the Broncos.
Well, and the Falcons are probably feeling the same way in the sense of,
right.
well, we'd rather have the 9th
Yep.
pick
100%.
because we think Kyle Pitts is still going to be there or whoever.
Right.
And so if you guys need to wait till draft day, we can wait till draft day too because, why would we be in a
Right.
rush to trade the pick right now too? So that to me is what's gonna. I don't think you're gonna see a trade for number 4 happen until draft night, just because unless someone somewhere can be 100% sure of what's gonna happen at 3. And so there you go. Okay. I think I know the answer to this, but again, I want to give the people a payoff. If the Broncos were to trade up to 4, who do they take?
Who do they take?
So this is who you would take.
No,
it's
who would
are
it be
projecting.
So
for? It's important to remember Minnesota, North Dakota.
Yep.
Not only do they rhyme, but they're close. And there's a very good chance that George Payton has had his eye on Trey Lance for quite some time.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think that, you have to look at it starting with number 1. It's going to be Trevor Lawrence. Number 2, it seems like Zach Wilson is locked in number 2. I don't love that. But then number 3.
Or do you love it because you're coming from a Broncos
Sure.
perspective?
Yeah, sure. We can look at it that way. But number 3,
You love it.
everybody seems to think that 49ers are taking Mac Jones. I'm willing to trust it, leaving Justin Fields and Trey Lance. And that's the assumption I'm making is those are your 2 options. I think it is Lance over Fields. I think that is the move. I think everything we've been hearing is that Fields is dropping, and there's no reason to think that the Broncos aren't part of the reason why that is the belief right now.
Yep. I think if they're moving up to 4, it would indicate to me they are moving up to prioritize Lance over Fields. That's just, an outside, a view from the outside.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think it would be for Fields. I think Fields would be their guy if they move up to 4. And I think that would be really exciting. It's probably the most
It would be exciting.
exciting possible. Well, I mean, either one, Lance or Fields, is definitely the most exciting thing that can happen for the Broncos in this draft.
Fields a little more exciting.
Because I think he'd
think
play
so.
this year. I mean, Lance, I
Well,
don't think
right,
you're going to
sure.
see. I think you see last 3-4 games, but he's just not. He's not.
But I mean,
close,
you're
in my
going back
opinion.
to like Von Miller for the Broncos to have been able to
Yeah.
acquire that kind of premier talent, name recognition. But I don't know that Von even is at the level of what Justin Fields is right now.
Agreed. Again, he was a 5-star. He was the number 1 recruit. He was on the QB1 show. Like
Yeah.
that was the big Netflix like high school.
Yeah.
Everybody's paying attention to him for this long. It would draw a lot of attention. It'd be a lot of fun for sure.
Plus, he wears number 1, which is awesome.
Yeah, which is wide open for the Broncos.
Exactly.
There you
Exactly. All right. If you enjoyed this, make sure you hit us with a like and stay tuned for our last video of the series, which will be talking about the trade down possibilities.